Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome.
And we are here today to entertain you with all things EV and some of the current topics that we've accumulated over the last week, all related to electric vehicles, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then Wednesdays, we do our Roadster podcast, which, by the way, was very successful yesterday. Many thanks to our suspension expert, Mike Manning, who came in and joined us and gave us quite an in-depth analysis of what's going on with the Tesla Roadster as it's aging. And those of you that are driving EVs now that aren't as old as a Tesla Roadster, you'll be experiencing the same thing soon as these suspension components wear out, rubber bushings wear out, shocks go bad. And we're actually working on a Tesla Model S suspension and shock package now, which will be an upgrade that will be available before too long.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Mike Manning as well. Just the ease at which he could explain how the shock was working, the internals of the shock, and how he converted into commonplace, everyday English language. That really was cool.
Yeah, I had him on a conference call about 2 weeks ago. We were attempting to talk a Roadster customer into getting rid of those shocks that he had. In fact, it was the one that, let me show you something. That was a car that had this butchered, kludged shock mount. Here the weld is broken off. I don't know if you can see that. And it looked like a first-time welding trial on this shock tower. But it definitely makes a difference. I mean, the car rattles. It doesn't handle well. You get vibration. And, yeah, suspension issues. There's one other thing that occurs with your suspension issues is that it is such a slow, subtle change, you don't realize how bad it's gotten. You know, when something breaks on your car, like the motor mount, you have an instant clunking, and you remember what it was the day before, no
Right.
clunking versus clunking. With shocks and suspension, it gradually gets worse, and you don't remember how smooth your car was at the time you got it and when the suspension was still solid.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I remember I installed some jounce springs on the back of my pickup truck recently because of a heavy load that we have. We have a cab over camper, and the ride of the pickup truck is completely different. Yet at the same time, over time, seeing the shocks go bad, you don't even think about it. You don't even notice.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got a first YouTube comment or question from RC Robinson-San. He says, I'm learning a lot from this channel, learn something new every day, upvoted. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and those of you that are joining us now, let us know where you're coming in from. We had quite an international audience over the last couple of days. We were amazed. Eastern Europe, Australia, Africa, Ireland came in for a while, and it's always fascinating.
Yeah, I think virtually all parts of the world except for South America were represented in the last two podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to all of our viewers, don't forget to hit the like button, just like Mr. Robinson over here. It does help with the algorithm, and it helps get this video in front of more people to grow the reach of the channel.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
Yep. So one of the things we wanted to lead with was apparently Elon has piped up over the last week or so, and he took some jabs at a rival electric vehicle company on Monday, Lucid, of course, and he was suggesting that its boss was overpaid relative to its success. His exact quote on X, formerly known as Twitter, is, beware any company where leadership compensation is not linked to performance. And he was responding to a recent CEO compensation survey that was published in the Automotive News and Equilar, which indicated that Pete Rawlinson, the CEO of Lucid, was the highest paid boss of a listed U.S. automaker last year. Now, this is, of course, all of them globally. His compensation for last year was $379 million in total compensation, which consisted of a number of things. There's only a $500,000 base salary. Did you notice I said only in comparison to the full amount?
I did.
And it was $575,000 base salary with $373 million in stock awards and $5.5 million in stock options. Now, GM's CEO, Mary Barra, only received $34 million, and it's less than a tenth of Pete Rawlinson's figure, the survey suggested. And we were lamenting that, she's probably one of those people that it would pay to stoop and pick up $100 bill
That's right.
off the street, because we did some math and we figured out with $379 million yearly compensation, what is that per hour, per minute, and per second? Do you guys remember any of those stats?
I remember the per second stat. It was $50.61 per second
Okay.
of income, and so it was. I think it was something like $18,000 an hour of income.
But again, it turns out Elon did not receive any stock awards or options last year, and he declined to take a salary. So this is the year that he could have made that statement. However, Elon has received over $23 billion of stock options after his 2021 Tesla blew past several market capitalization and earnings milestones.
Well, and that's a really important caveat there, because Peter Rawlinson's salary is largely based on the fact that Lucid blew past some market capitalization milestones. He received about 14 million shares of stock as compensation for Lucid being valued as high as it was at the beginning of 2022, which in fact was about $42, $43 per share. And so as a result, Peter's stock value at the end of 2022 was only about an eighth of what it was that is listed on the award.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And to put all this in perspective, it has to do also with liquidity. It doesn't mean that Peter could tomorrow decide, you know what, I'm going to retire and I'm going to take my $379 million. I'm going to buy a house on the coast of California, a yacht, and a private airplane. This is not real money.
That's right. It's monopoly money.
Exactly.
And in fact, some additional perspective here. I decided to go back and look 3 years back, since this is just 2022. Looking back 3 years, of course, you've got Peter Rawlinson. Now, his average over 3 years, because of the $373 million award in 2022, is $189 million a year.
Okay.
I'm going to have to pull a hair out of my nose to cry, I tell you. Elon Musk, $245 million a year between 2020 and 2022. I have a feeling that Elon had enough money to be able to afford to say, yeah, I don't need any stock options. Yeah, I don't need any salary.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Barra, the poor lady, only received $26 million a year average from General Motors.
Average.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
And then R.J. Scarage,
Mm-hmm.
he's the CEO of Rivian. He was my biggest surprise. He's received an average from 2020 through 2022 of $141 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Again, mostly it's stock awards or performance that the company did, or for capitalization rather than revenue performance. And if everyone recalls, Rivian went out at $75 a share, and within a couple days of their IPO, they were running at almost $120 a share. So they probably hit some of these market capitalization benchmarks that would allow him to get stock compensation. And like Peter Rawlinson, my bet is that what he got and what was reported as income is now worth about a tenth of what was reported.
Interesting. So it sounds like when we give career advice nowadays, instead of saying go get an engineering degree so that you can get into the EV world, we should tell them go get a CEO class.
Yeah.
'Cause that's going to be the highest rate of return for you. And, in all fairness to Elon here, the point he's trying to make is leadership compensation should be linked to performance.
Yeah, and that's a point that we really can't ignore, because whether it's Peter Rawlinson or R.J. Scarage, you've got guys who are leading companies that are startups that are trying to survive. And even though this is monopoly money, this isn't hard cash, it still really raises eyebrows at the type of compensation that these guys are getting. For what? For companies that are losing money every quarter.
Yeah, good point. Bunch of questions coming in. Mark James from YouTube. He's coming in from Cheney, Washington. Thank you for joining us.
Yes,
Appreciate
and
it.
I think that's pronounced Cheney. And if I
Cheney?
remember right, that's over in Western Washington. I'm sorry, Eastern Washington, because I grew up not too far across the border in Idaho.
Well, you would know. Yeah.
And then user 806 on TikTok. Are you guys hiring mechanical engineers?
You know, we're always hiring. Send your resumes to ev@gruber.com, gruber.com. And yeah, we'd love to get your resume and see if there's a good skills fit. We're not into relocating people. We've got a lot of resumes from India, overseas, even South Africa. And
Yeah.
it would be very difficult to, to bring in someone from that far away. And but yeah, if you're local to Phoenix, Arizona, we have lots of openings here all the time. Please send us your resumes. YouTube, Brad T. Hey Pete, is Gruber Motors currently looking for any Tesla techs? Greatly inspired by the podcast here in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, you've got the right profile. Yes, we are. And again, ev@gruber.com. We'd love to see what you've got on your resume. And yeah, there's a high probability that there may be a hire if it's the right experience or the right skill set.
Yep. On YouTube, Nolver53 asks, only $500,000?
Oh, the salary.
Yeah, so the salary. Actually, Nolver, it was about $575,000, but what's a few tens of thousands of dollars among friends?
Right, right. YouTube, Stephen Rose, greetings from San Juan Capistrano, California. I just finished building my first EV conversion using a Porsche Boxter and Tesla Model S batteries. Your podcast has been a great help. Well, my hat's off to you. That was an integration challenge. And if you pull that off, we're pretty impressed.
I'm very impressed. And Stephen, if you would be willing, take some pictures of your car, send them to ev@gruber.com. We'd love to see the end result.
Absolutely. Richard Flenke is with us from YouTube. He said Lucid is down at $6 today, near its 52-week low. I think I've seen it as low as $5.88 so far this year.
Yeah, that $6 is going to be really low. There's one other I just to throw out.
Okay.
We've been talking VinFast for a couple weeks now, and I'm not going to do it too much longer. But I figured, okay, here's the stock prices. Again, I'll go back to 28th of August, $48. Let me get back here. I'm sorry, it was down $28 to $54.32. On Tuesday
in August.
That was August 28th, so that was a week ago. That was a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago. On the 5th, on Tuesday, as of 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, it was about $27. We heard during the show that it had gone down to about $25. This morning's update, they're down to $20.
Welcome to the stock market, folks. When we first saw that stock take off during the IPO, we said, oh, we should have got in it. Then it went real high, and we said, we should short it, and we didn't. Then it went higher, and we said, oh, we feel great now that we didn't short the stock because we would have lost money if it had gone up, and now it's coming down hard, and now we're saying we should have shorted it. But this is kind of how the stock market works, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm not an avid investor, because I would tend to buy high and sell low.
And it definitely kicks in two levels of emotion: greed and fear.
Yeah.
The FOMO principle, fear of missing out, is in between those two all the time. And yeah. YouTube, Nolver53, welcome back. He says, wonderful video with Sandy Monroe. When you two briefly touched on battery tech, you mentioned lithium iron phosphate batteries. Are they less volatile than what's presently being used? Yes, they do not. They do not ignite as easily. And the other advantage with those is you can charge those to 100%. So the battery tech does continue to improve. The things that we're excited about that are off in the future with these solid state batteries will eventually come to fruition, like the graphene battery pack, the sodium pack, which is going to be a lot less expensive. And of course, less problematic as far as mining and moving the raw materials around. And then, of course, we also have the exciting prospect of recycling, where these types of batteries, are actually 100% high-grade ore. and with a 0% waste stream at places like Redwood Materials. Now, there's a guy we got to get on our show,
Yeah.
J.B. Strobel.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely have to get him on the show. You know, I was thinking between shows about the one of the comments we had recently about repairability of batteries.
Mm-hmm.
How if you crash one of these Model Ys with a structural battery and the battery itself gets compromised, you may end up totaling the car, even though the car has minor damage, because the battery is gone. And the cost of providing a new battery plus the cost of repairs for the car could easily exceed the value of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, okay, that the batteries might not be repairable, but if the batteries are 100% recyclable, maybe it doesn't matter as much if they're not repairable.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's one of the assumptions that you make when we are repairing batteries is we don't want to see a bunch of lithium going out into some sort of landfill or dumpster somewhere. We want to try to repair it and extend its life.
Right.
Now we know that lithium and all the chemicals and everything in the battery are virtually 100% recyclable. That argument kind of loses its legs.
Yeah. You know, people ask us all the time, recyclers, can we have your scrap batteries? We don't have scrap batteries typically because we
Right.
repair everything. Yeah, interesting concept. So YouTube PYGKLB says, good morning from sunny Western Oregon. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Welcome back.
And then YouTube Brad T. Agree, CEO compensation should be tied to performance. And sometimes it's voluntary. You know, Elon remarkably elected to not take a salary for
Yeah.
a number of years when the company wasn't profitable.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't very hard for him as the equity grew to go to a bank and get loans against his equity. But he didn't have a salary that he had to report for taxable income.
Yeah, and and so many higher level management people, not only CEOs, but the CFOs or chief information officers, CIOs or chief operating officers, which are the COOs. Your senior leadership in companies oftentimes are paid a small amount of their total compensation as salary, and a much, much higher percentage, 80, 90, or even more percent come in as things like stock options or stock awards or things that are tied to the performance of the company, where if the company is doing really well, you suddenly have somebody who's being paid millions of dollars equivalent. And if the company's not, they're getting just that base salary and nothing else.
Yeah. You know, for years, when we've been doing this for 40 years, of course, it was quite common that there were people here that were making a lot more money than I was. They were typically in sales, and you know, they're commissioned. And people would ask me, "Doesn't that bother you?" I said, "No, not really, because the company is thriving, you know, and there is equity being developed in the company." But yeah, if you have your head in the right place, you know, the salary number is not that important.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, personally, my excitement is for our salespeople. I can't wait to see how many salespeople are going to get into approach and get into that 7-figure range here in this company.
Yeah.
And it's going to be salespeople because they're the ones that are providing for the company, and they're the ones that get compensated for what they provide. I can't wait to see that happen. We've been close.
Yeah. You know, it's also rewarding because you realize you're changing people's lives. A lot of these people have had careers before they came here.
Yeah.
And they were tied to dollars per hours and exchanging, you know, fixed income, basically. In this kind of environment like we have here, it's if you're an overachiever, you're going to make a lot of money here.
Yes. PC on YouTube has a comment that says Bill Gates was paid $500,000 a year, same type of thing.
Right.
Yet he acquired over $60 billion in personal wealth. And that's, again, because Bill Gates was a big part of his salary ended up being the option to buy stocks or awards of stocks. And I think it was a great thing for him. He was betting on himself and his ability to run his company, as has Elon, as is Peter Rawlinson, as Steve Jobs did, and so many others.
YouTube PYGKLB says, I have a Matchbox Lucid Air. He's waiting for a stock dip to offer it as an even trade for someone wanting out. That's cold-hearted, but it may be true.
He's not that far away at this
Right,
point.
yeah. YouTube, James Wright. Sodium ion is what I'm excited about. Yeah. It's and of course graphene. I mean, one of the most plentiful elements on this earth is carbon, and we've got too much on the planet that we need to get rid of or repurpose in some way.
James, I'm with you. I'm very excited at the potential for sodium ion, and I know that there are researchers down at Arizona State University here in the Phoenix area that are mixing technologies, including sodium salts for sodium ion, potassium salts, and lithium salts in mixture to find out what mix works best to get a good balance of stability, energy density, and price.
Mm-hmm.
They're making some really, really cool progress as well.
YouTube, Richard Flenke. Welcome back, Richard. He says, please talk about Chargepoint. Tesla's NACS move killed it. You guys see any hope for non-NACS charge systems?
Chargepoint and others like it. I think of Blink. I think of Electrify America. They've got a hard row to hoe. However, they've got some backing that the Tesla superchargers have not taken advantage of, and that is the U.S. government itself.
Mm-hmm.
The Inflation Reduction Act and the billions and billions of dollars in infrastructure improvements are going to be spread across multiple charging systems or multiple charging companies. That's going to help some of these companies survive where maybe they wouldn't survive otherwise. I did see that ChargePoint just this week announced that they're going to put the NACS adapter onto all their new chargers, and they're going to start retrofitting their existing chargers to put the NACS adapter on for the exact reason that you're just saying, Richard, and that's because they don't want to lose their customer base, because now their customer base is going to have cars that all charge to the NACS standard.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Instagram, Christina French 08. Is there any way to fix your background on this Instagram live feed? YouTube live feed looks much nicer, but I prefer to watch on Instagram. If this is the Christina that works here, Christina.
You're not supposed to call them out, Pete.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. All right, you'll remain anonymous, Christina. It is not something that we control, unfortunately, and hopefully at some point the streaming service we use will be able to accommodate green screen with Instagram.
Yeah, we're working on that actually with our IT manager. I've been working in the background. Hopefully that's coming soon.
Yeah, but thanks for watching, Christina.
Glad to have you on. Thanks for watching.
You could just walk maybe 75 feet and walk in the studio here to see us as well. She sits right outside our offices.
What about anonymity, Pete?
All right. Oh, yeah, sorry. I screwed that up again, didn't I?
We have, if you guys can scroll backward, we have a gentleman from Iran who has come in as well, Mohammed RMOH, again on Instagram. If you want to see the background, which we haven't talked about yet this morning.
Let's do that. For those of you that don't see the background, I'll describe it. And for those of you that are seeing it, again, a description. I decided to try something different rather than try a high-tech news studio type of a background, asking AI. I said to it today, you know what? Give us a news studio in a tropical setting with warm colors. And boy, it didn't disappoint. This is really pretty restive. I actually changed my screensaver to this.
I could see why. That's a really beautiful picture. It reminds me of the Hawaiian Islands.
Does it? Yeah.
It really does. I've only been once when I was clear back in high school, and it's that kind of setting. It reminds me of those.
Yep. All right, YouTube, Mark James, when are you getting your 3 new Roadsters, and what is the plan with them? Okay, that usually comes up in these podcasts these days. The latest update we have was actually from 3 days ago, and the sellers said that the cars are currently in 3 20-foot sea containers on the ship off the coast of California by Long Beach. They will be unloading today or tomorrow. They think that customs will be fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
All that's left is an X-ray at the port of entry. And from there, they will be placed on common carrier vehicles and make their way to Gruber Motor Company. We're already beginning to anticipate the arrival The challenge right now is getting them off of the truck, and we're going to have to lease or to rent a crane. It looks like.
You know what would be really, really fun, and I don't know if we can handle this because of the logistics, would love to see us sitting out there in front of those sea containers for our podcast right after they arrive.
Is that doable, social media guys? Could we move some equipment out there?
We have to buy more equipment, Pete.
yeah,
Just what you like to hear. We need a mobile setup now.
I think Jesse just lies waiting for that comment, right? We got to buy more equipment. Yeah.
Just a little
There's
expansion.
justification. Yeah. It's pretty difficult. If you saw our studio here, there are literally cables everywhere. We trip on them, we walk on them, and it is a work in process that has evolved into something much, much larger than it started off being. I think we had a table, a couple of mics, and didn't even have headsets when we started with one camera, right? And it is now, yeah.
Come a long way, and we never really announced it, but back on August 8th, I think, was our 1-year anniversary of this run of the podcast. So
That's right.
there's that, and then we did a trial run before that. So it's been a few years we built this thing up.
Mm-hmm. And the future plans are we're going upstairs. We're going to double the size of the studio and create a construction, or the construction effort will give us something far more professional than what we have here. We are in the access floor business, by the way, raised floor and computer rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing that we decided to do, because if you saw our floor here, there are snakes and spaghetti everywhere, cables, and all of that will be hidden. And the green screen behind us currently is a piece of cloth that happens to be the right green color. What we're going to do in the studio is actually paint the wall green and have it curve so that it's an endless green. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. We will. We doesn't look like we can do anything live out there, although we will do some videos, though, TikTok videos and probably some YouTube content as well.
Oh, definitely. And I wouldn't be surprised if we take advantage of our green screen when those trailers come in, and maybe that becomes our background picture for the day. So PYGKLB on YouTube comment for us and says, Elon Musk also ate peanut butter and did a lot of couch surfing before Tesla became profitable. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, the stories are that his mom saw the potential in Elon. There were 2 boys, actually, and of course a daughter as well. But she actually, despite the fact not having even furniture at one point, she bought Elon a computer. And that is a remarkable mom when they're able to, redirect limited funds like that, seeing the potential in one of their children like that.
Yes.
And not that the other ones are slouches. You know, Kimball's doing well with restaurants. And I forget the sister's name. Anybody remember here? No?
I don't know. We'll have to see if Richard or Aaron can look that up for us again.
She's definitely not in the limelight like the other 2 guys are, or, especially Elon. So Instagram, Ariana Neek says, hi, man, and it looks like some Cyrillic alphabet. So I'm not sure where that's from. Or is that Arabic, maybe?
I think it's Arabic.
Arabic, okay.
So I looked it up. It did detect it as Arabic, being Google Translate. However, it wasn't anything. It wasn't a word or anything. So maybe it's some close dialect to Arabic.
Okay.
Well, again, thank you for joining us. Different parts of the world coming in. Then we've got YouTube PC. He says, corporate boards can divert all the value of the companies they run to themselves that they want to, even while losing vast amounts of money.
There are some limitations to that, but I'm not going to really disagree there. They have a tremendous power to do things.
Mm-hmm.
There is the chance for other shareholders to bring them to account, but that usually involves lawsuits and courts, and then the winners are not the board of directors or the shareholders, it's the attorneys.
Right. YouTube PC, Lion King. Yeah, that backdrop could be a
could
Lion
be.
King skit, could it not? And then he also says, congrats on the Teslas coming home. Yes, we're all feeling that
Very.
that long journey for these Roadsters is over, and they were discovered, and now they're coming back home to where they belong.
Alternative Energy Atiaroa from YouTube has joined us today. Kia ora from a Teslarossa, and with the clapping emoji. We now, it took me a while, but I know how to pronounce it now. That's in New Zealand. So good evening or late night to you, and thank you for joining.
YouTube, a lone FGC says, from Flint, Michigan, welcome. Hello, are you guys aware of any third-party warranty companies that cover EV motors and high-voltage batteries post-OEM powertrain warranty ending? It's a wonderful business opportunity, and I agree with you, Lone FGC, that this is something that would definitely be a wonderful business opportunity for someone to get into that. But I think the landscape is currently moving so quickly, it's difficult to establish what the risk management that is associated with this is, because that's what it's going to be about, you know? I mean, we're in the risk management business with service contracts for critical power equipment, and you have to take a look at your wins and losses in order to determine what to charge for these services.
Most definitely. Now, I do know, having had the experience of just about a year ago buying a Volvo XC40 Recharge. That was a full electric vehicle. They did offer an extended warranty with this, and it was one of the common warranty companies that works alongside of the auto companies. So there are places that are out there that do offer the extended warranties. I'm not sure if they offer them independently of dealers or if they're only working with the dealers still.
No.
But they have largely, at least in Volvo's case, they had worked out the risk factors enough to be able to offer that to us.
Sure. And just to give you an idea of the complexities involved in this kind of a program, let's say that you get into the business and you decide that you're going to offer high voltage battery warranties on Tesla Model S's. We'll start small. We'll start with one car. So you take a service contract in Atlanta, Georgia, all right? A year later, the thing fails. Now what? You're not going to be able to take it to Tesla because the only fix there is a $22,000 battery replacement, which the funding for this definitely is not going to support. The ideal method would be if you had bricks and mortar service locations all over the country that you could send them to, and they would repair these batteries.
Right.
Well, there are a number of issues associated with that. The repair process for these batteries is not bulletproof yet. A lot of companies struggle with that. We've got a system that we've refined that works quite well, but there aren't a lot of other companies around the planet that have that. So that's your first problem. Where are they going to get the work done? Now you try to transport the car to your service center. A trip for a Model S to Phoenix, Arizona is around $2,400 one way. So you got a $5,000 expense off the top, then another $5,000 to $8,000 for repair. So these are the complexities that are involved. And then, of course, people are going to expect a loaner car for the weeks or months that you keep their car while you're repairing it.
Right. Yeah, the costs may rise very, very quickly. There's a lot of risk and a lot of unknown still to this. So that's typical for an immature industry, which is EV cars are still in a very immature industry.
But it is a business opportunity. It will eventually evolve into something viable, and assuming that the manufacturers don't begin to create a really great cost for these types of repairs.
Right.
YouTube, we did that one. YouTube, Richard Flenke says, the TRI Roadster saga lives on. The drama is palpable. The anticipation is better than Heinz ketchup. And you know what? You're right, Richard. What I find fascinating with these TRI Roadsters is it has launched the obscure Tesla Roadster, their first generation car, into the limelight. And there aren't too many people on the planet now that aren't aware of it, at least.
Right.
And, which is exciting because the car really was pretty obscure. It was left field. It wasn't anything out in the forefront because of all of these other Teslas that were taking the limelight. But yeah, these TRI Roadsters are definitely changing that. And then it looks like YouTube, PYGKLB, gave us Elon's sister's name. It is Tosca. That's right, Tosca Musk.
Thank you. And then Christina French, 08, says, sounds good with a smiley face. So you never know. Rehab Icer on Instagram says, greetings from Turkey. I would like to ask, are you interested in Tesla multimedia retrofitting? For example, Teslas coming to Turkey do not currently have the SIM card module required for an internet connection. Can you activate these?
I did not know that there were limitations like that. Yeah. Uh, well, can we do that? We have software people that could certainly look into that, but it seems to me that something like this would take advantage of the Starlink system, would it not?
Possibly, and unless the actual LTE chip or something like that was either physically not there on the MCU or had been, was
Had been
removed,
removed, yeah.
or if it's that, there's not much we can do. If it's that it's disabled, well, that's a software setting, and that would be something that we could potentially help with.
If we're not violating any of Tesla's constraints regarding that.
Yes.
We don't know the reasons that it is not functioning. And but from Turkey, greetings. You're a long ways away as well.
Thank
I
you.
think
and good
you're
evening.
right too. Just strap a Starlink to the top of that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have to apologize. I typed the name incorrectly. It's Reha Bicer.
Reha Bicer. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And they have a follow-up comment. They're stating that that there is no SIM card in the car.
Oh, there isn't one. Okay. So then the mystery is, why was it removed? For what purpose? And can it be replaced by Tesla?
Yeah, because that's I know that we would not have the hardware to do that. We in the business that we work with, we're constantly on the lookout for parts.
Mm-hmm. TikTok, AJ Productions asks, when will Tesla redesign the Model S? Well, when you have a winner, maybe you leave it alone. Is that what I think that may be what they're thinking, although they do some modifications to it. There's the facelift version. We're going to talk about the Highlander a little bit today, where they took a Model 3 and actually improved it and made some design changes to it.
Yeah, and I'd love to see a refresh on the Model S. It's very, in today's culture, it's very, very unusual to have a car like the Model S that is now going on 14 years with basically the same design.
Yeah.
That's very uncommon. Now, if you go back in culture, if you go back to the beginning of the automotive age, you'll find that, for example, the Model T that came out in 1909 looked almost exactly like the Model T that came out in 1927.
Really?
And nobody
Wow.
thought anything
Yeah.
of it. It just kind of was what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a change against the current culture. I would love to see some redesigns and improvements on the Model S.
Mm-hmm. All right. YouTube, Stephen Rose says, is the battery container room you are building complete? Yes, for the most part. The battery bunker is up and running. We put in a computer room air conditioning system about 5 months ago or so. The benches are set up. The power supplies are there. And it is currently being used for any kind of individual sheet charging. And self-contained, a distance from the main building. And should there ever be a breakout of any kind of thermal event, it would just sit there and glow cherry red.
Yeah, it sure would. And nothing would happen to the building other than maybe a little bit of peeled paint if the heat got intense.
Mm-hmm. So moving along here with our topics, the Tesla Model 3 Highlander, again, or Highland, it debuted last week. And they say with much excitement from the electric vehicle community. And it takes a Model 3 basically, and it makes it an even better car. The professional reviewers weighed in, and they took it for test drives. And what their feedback was, the first reviews at least, is that the overall reception to the vehicle has been stellar. It is quieter and more comfortable on the interior compared to its previous iterations of the Model 3. And its changes extend even to the hood that reduces cabin noise and increases efficiency. And that came up often in the reviews, is that it is much quieter on the inside. It has an updated look with sharper headlights and new tail lights. And they noticed also that it seems to be sleeker, and it makes the Model 3 look a bit more assertive than before. That's going to be good news to the tuners that are trying to improve the appearance of their Model 3. One of our ex-employees, actually, Luca, he's got a black Model 3.
Yes.
Oh, he did so much to that car to really make it look sharp. He's got different wheels on it. He's got better suspension on it. He's got, he blacked out, I think, the handles. But yeah.
Yeah, he blacked out just about everything and then just has some red highlights to contrast, like the I think the badge on the tires on the wheels. It's a beautiful car, but I was going to ask you how much can the car tuners, these guys that like to spend thousands of dollars upgrading the engine and the brakes and the suspension and everything, can they really spend on any kind of Tesla? Because so much of what the tuners would do to improve their car is part of that electric powertrain that you don't really want to touch.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget that an ICE car has 2,000 moving parts, and an EV has 20, maybe 18 or 20. So there's not a lot that you can improve or change, but suspension is typically where I've seen most of the improvements focused on. And then, of course, tire tech. And but yeah, it's one of those rare cases where the car comes pretty much complete right from the manufacturer. There's not a lot left to do to it.
No, not a lot. It's tint the windows and improve the suspension. Okay, I could see that.
So what you're saying, Pete, is we're gonna have some of those lowriders coming in. With the bouncing front ends of the cars. We're gonna see some Teslas bouncing pretty soon here. You think?
That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? There's actually a bouncing Mercedes that is able to unstick itself when you get it stuck in mud or sand. And they showed this thing. It starts to bounce like a lowrider, and if you have propulsion going on at the same time, it tends to jump out of its ruts so that you can actually get freed up.
Considering the type of momentum that you're going to need for like a 1,200-pound battery,
right? Yeah.
I've seen in one case I saw a video of a car. This was a Chinese manufacturer, and I think the car was in China. Car was leaving one of those battery swap stations, hit a bump, and the car kept going, but the battery fell on the ground and just stayed right there. I could see that with bounce, 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 thunk.
Right. And you're leaving parts behind for sure. So they say that this Highland interior has perforated seats now that cool and heat the front passengers. It has a new steering column, and it features the stalkless driving system.
Yeah.
But anyway, overall, it appears to have been quite a hit, a lot quieter than its previous version. And the improvements are definitely being heralded as something that improves the car. They said that the Model 3 was quite noisy at high speeds. I don't think I've ever driven one at high speeds.
I honestly would have to say I've never been in either a Model 3 or a Model Y. I've been in a Model S. I've been in a Roadster. But that's I don't know. I have heard some people comment on the stickless driving experience and saying that it's really hard to get used to.
Is it? Yeah.
Your turn signals are not over here. Your cruise control is not over here or lower down. They're all on the steering wheel. And
there was no standardization with these stocks either. One of the complaints about the Lucid cars was you'd be driving down the freeway and suddenly you'd lose power.
Yeah.
If it was raining. And it turns out that the stalk that is normally expected to be on the left side for the wipers was on the right side, and people were throwing it into neutral and then thinking that they had lost power. So yeah, it's another one of those things where standardization is probably now solved because we've gotten rid of the stalks as these cars continue to evolve.
I mean, even the Model S, the 2012 and 2013 Model S, has the cruise control high and the turn signal low, which is the opposite of what most cars have.
Right.
And then sometime in late 2014, early 2015, Tesla themselves decided to flip it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've gone from newer version to older version to newer version. Every time I do it, I find myself turning off my cruise control when I want to hit the turn signal.
Right. And if you think about it, keeping cruise control low makes much more sense because which one of those two do you use the most?
Exactly.
So we've got a picture, Jesse. If you can throw this up. This is the Fisker picture. And have it in here. Realized I do not. All right. Never mind on the picture. I'm just going to describe it to you. Fisker apparently released an optimistically priced pair electric crossover. I'm sorry, released new images. Let's be real clear about that. There's a lot of things that Fisker is planning on releasing that haven't yet come to fruition. So these are images of a pair electric crossover, which includes what they call a Houdini trunk in action. And this is a pretty good automotive gimmick, people feel. But what it does apparently, with a touch of a button, the rear window will roll down into the hatch, and then the entire door disappears into the underbody of a vehicle. It rolls down just like the window. Oh, it looks like we're bringing up something here. All right, there we go.
There you go. That was a brief beginning of a picture of that. The window rolling down into the gate, which rolls down underneath the body somehow.
Right.
And I watched the video on this, and then I watched it again, and then I watched it again. It was fascinating to watch, not only because of the novelty of this, but trying to figure out, is that gate taller than the bumper, and is it going straight down, or is it shorter than the bumper, or is it sliding underneath, or what?
I'll see if I can find a better one.
Now, I'm all for gimmicks. I mean, gimmicks are cool. But my take on this is, guys, let's get some cars out in production before we get fancy things like a pair Houdini trunk that may not be necessary or popular. So that would be my take on this.
As long as it works, I could see this appealing to the market that it's designed for very, very much. And I think the market, we're talking about a new EV that's going to be under $25,000 new. The market is going to be the apartment dweller, the person who has small parking spaces, small parking lots, shared parking lots, possibly parallel parking on the street, where you don't have a lot of room to lift up a trunk necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And if this works well, I could see this being a big appeal to that market.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of like you. It seems like it's an awful lot to put into a little low-cost car.
Yeah.
And very gimmicky.
And if it is truly a $25,000 car, maybe it could be a $22,000 car without this gimmicky, hood or trunk latch thing.
Right.
All right. So let me see if I have any other pictures here. Have the questions stopped, guys?
Video of it.
Okay.
We have not had any comments since the SIM card comment yet.
But we're still live, right?
We certainly are.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we're it's a little unusual to not get comments for this long, so we're glad that we're checking. So we've got this. This is the video of the pair. Now, in this particular presentation video, there were some questions about how slowly this trunk is going to go down.
Hey, that's Henry. Yeah, there he is standing behind the pair.
And there's a pretty nice camera rig right there, Richard. I don't know if you see that.
I don't. Where is it? Oh, yeah.
What you going to add? We need that, Pete?
That's actually...
Oh, yeah. We need that for sure.
Everything we need for that, Pete, is in my Amazon cart.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Just
sure.
waiting to be funded with a credit card, right?
$1,500.
So here's the gate going down. Henry is talking about it. A lot of comments that Fisker got back was, well, this is fine, but it's so slow.
Uh-huh.
And then his response was, actually, we slowed it down in order for you guys to be able to get a good image on video of how it works.
Right.
Oh,
I mean, if that thing's 25 grand, that's not bad at all.
That's true. Yes. See solar panels on top.
it's an intriguing car. I really hope they're able to get this thing out to market and soon.
Be cool. Yes. All right. Let's go into some other topics here. The statistics graph there, guys, and that one is out there. It's called BANS, and I don't know why I called it that. I had to do a double take on that. What we're going to look at here in just a moment is, and this is from the world of statistics, it is the number of countries that are banning the sales of new petrol or gasoline and diesel cars by 2030, not 2035, by 2030. 7 years away or less. And you can see them there. Norway, of course, no surprise there. They've got the highest per capita EV ownership in the world at this point. But Denmark, UK, Germany, Ireland, Iceland, Netherlands, Greece, Israel, and Sweden. Now, it's rapid, and it's happening quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see what the impact of this is, as these countries will no longer allow the sales of vehicles. And I would hate to be in the shoes of an auto manufacturer at this point in time, because my timetable may not match this timetable.
Right.
We have a large retrofit to do. We've got production lines that have to be restructured and rebuilt. And there's a certain amount of funding for all of that. And those formulas may not match this type of a timetable. Now what?
Oh, exactly. A country like Norway, if I'm an automaker, I'm like, oh well.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
maybe they don't have, now I know they do, but maybe some of these countries don't have automakers that are going to be affected by this.
Right. Norway, Denmark, not a big deal. UK, they're a little bit bigger nation. Germany, though, I mean, that's going to have a worldwide impact, in my opinion,
Huge.
because there are so many German automakers that sell most of their cars in Germany. You're talking Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Porsche. Those are just a few of the automakers that Germany has. And they are known worldwide for the quality of their vehicles and for their auto sales. And I know that a lot of these auto manufacturers do a majority of their sales right in their home country.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to be a big, big impact when that one hits.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like when here in the United States, California decided to say, we're going to ban ICE vehicle sales of new ICE vehicles in 2035. Instantly, well, there are 16 additional states that have laws on the books that basically say when it comes to environmental issues, whatever California says, we'll do.
Mm-hmm.
So when California said it, that means 17 states across the U.S., and most of those 17 states have decided explicitly to go ahead and follow California's lead.
Kind of like the adoption of the NACS standard, and the dominoes began to fall.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be what happens. Right now, I notice that this is almost all European countries except for Israel, which is in the Middle East. As soon as you start getting outside of Europe for some of these countries, the dominoes will really start to fall, I think.
I agree. By the way, speaking of dominoes and NACS standard falling, it's one of the later things in our agenda here. Guess who just picked up the NACS standard? Honda.
Honda, that's
Yeah,
right.
Finally on board.
My really quick take, I read about that, and Honda's picking up the NACS standard. I'm like, cool. Which car are they going to have to retrofit?
Right.
Because I think they only sell 2 or 3 electric cars a year.
Right.
I take that car into the service center, retrofit it, and boom. I would like to see Honda really make a commitment, as with the other Japanese automakers, make much more of a commitment to the EV space and not just paying lip service. I feel like Toyota is kind of paying lip service. Nissan had their Leaf for 11 or 12 years. They now have a new model out there, but they discontinued the Leaf in order to make one new model. It just feels like they're not really committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of quality you can get from the Japanese Asian automakers is in some cases rivals what's in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see that more. So I am glad to see Honda getting on, but I don't know what electric vehicles they make that are going to be impacted by it right now.
So the timelines that they give is that Honda's first electric vehicle with a default NACS port is expected to be launched in 2025. So we got a couple of years or so.
Mm-hmm.
He says from that point forward, Honda will be equipping its vehicles with NACS ports. But before then, before 2025, Honda's electric cars will still be fitted with the CCS, or Combined Charging System port, though the vehicles will still be designed to be compatible with Tesla superchargers through the use of an adapter.
Okay.
So it looks like this change could be almost immediate.
And
Yeah.
that's in line with what the other automakers are saying. Most of them are saying, "Hey, we're going to build it such that our vehicles will be compatible with a CCS to Tesla NACS adapter in 2024, and then starting in 2025, basically it'll be the reverse. We're going to put the NACS port on our cars, and if you want to go to CCS, you'll have to have an adapter."
Mm-hmm. Got a few more comments streaming in now. YouTube, Richard is back with us. Richard Flentke, or been here all along. He says, Fisker pair, question mark, pick-uppy, you can haul a surfboard or 2x4s, maybe not so gimmicky. By the way, is Fisker signed up on NACS? I don't think they are.
I don't think they are yet. I think they're going to be in the future.
Mhm.
The Fisker Alaska is a kind of an interesting small pickup, compact pickup that they have. I'm not really a compact pickup person, I realize. So
Mhm.
I think of the Alaska and like, yeah. But a lot of people have been very excited about it. The pair, I compare a little bit more to something like the Kia Soul.
Mhm.
A little four-door with a hatchback in the back, a small, more of an urban type of car, but surprising, because they're of their square size, they have surprisingly a lot of room in the cabin.
Mhm. Instagram, Luco Mahenry 569 says even Uganda is even trying to build a version of an electric automobile. That's interesting. I'd love to see the first version of that.
Not only that, Africa is the next great marketplace for electric vehicles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The income levels are not really there yet in much of the population. Some of the poorest areas of our entire world are there. But I think that if the income can come up just a little bit, there's a great opportunity.
YouTube, RC Robinson-San says, just seen where Hyundai Kia is building their own fast charging network in Korea. Interesting. I hope they're using the NACS standard, or their cars that will be traveling throughout that portion of the world may have a hard time getting a charge. Speaking of that, I've got another item here that we could talk about, and that is the adoption of charging systems within hospitality, in the hospitality industry. And bear with me here, I'll bring that up. Turns out that the Hilton chain is going to be adding a number of chargers and 20,000 stalls at 2,000 different Hilton sites. And what they're claiming is that it'll be throughout U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and starting as early as 2024. It will also be the universal wall connector, Tesla's universal wall connector, which is actually a combination of NACS standard and J1772 with an adapter. So it can charge both types of vehicles. And let's see what else we have here. It will be the largest of any hospitality company charging system. So Hilton wants to take the lead with charging, and they say that at least 6 chargers will be at each hotel. And they're hoping, of course, that Hilton will become the primary choice for EV drivers and travelers.
I don't think that's an unwise choice at all. I think that's very forward-looking of Hilton to be able to do that. And the Tesla Universal Wall Connector is kind of like the Tesla's version of a home charging system.
Mm-hmm.
So they can typically run 240 volts, 40 or up to 40 or 50 amps. I'm excited to see how this works out for them.
Mm-hmm. At the Point Tapatio Cliffs over here on 7th Street, they have 2 level 2 Tesla chargers there with the NACS plug.
Okay.
And when I go to do photo shoots sometimes with the Roadsters, because it's a beautiful spot going up the hill there where the cliffs are, switchbacks and all that, I'll take the Can Junior or the Can Senior along with me and get a charge while I'm there.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's brilliant for these types of companies to create a charging infrastructure to attract customers.
And I think that it will attract customers because that's to me where the real future of EVs goes. If you're traveling, travel during the day, maybe stop at lunch, pick up a charge while you're stopped at lunch. You get to your destination or get to your waypoint on your destination. At that night, you're going to park your car, go into your hotel room, plug your car in, and the next morning it's full again. And you're just and you're not even thinking about fueling because the car is being charged at convenient points.
Right. Jesse, got a picture I want to throw up here. It is called the Teslarossa -1. And this is a pretty cool story. It's a company in the UK called Electric Classic Cars. And the thing that put them on the map was they took a Testarossa. I'm going to screw this up. They took a Testarossa, a later model. It wasn't the original, which of course now is selling for a few $1 million. But the Testarossa had very characteristic body lines. It was still a Pininfarina body, but it had for the first time grills on the side doors, as you can see there. And it was a bit more boxy, kind of like the Ferrari Boxster, come to think of it. And they converted this to an EV, something that we would love to do. This is the fun stuff in the EV business.
Yeah.
But we're so busy keeping cars running and repairing them. It's also an enormous amount of integration, and I'm sure that the profitability is elusive when you're doing work like this. But they were able to remove the Ferrari V12 engine from a 1980s Testarossa and install an electric powertrain to create a Teslarossa. And so this may be a move in the future as cars eventually not only will not be able to be produced anymore in ICE version, but what we're predicting is eventually the governments are going to say we have enough global warming issues that we're not going to allow the driving of ICE vehicles or fossil fuel burners on the roads anymore. And if you want to keep your cherished, prized, vehicle possession on the road, you may have to do an EV conversion in order to keep it, running. So what they've done so far, this UK workshop, they've converted dozens of vehicles to run on electric motors. Now, what they don't give you in this article is what kind of drivetrain did they use. I can't imagine that this is going to be a Tesla Model S drivetrain because the car simply isn't large enough to fit that 1,200-pound battery pack underneath this car. And the amount of room that's available to stack batteries is also fairly limited in a car like this. So it'd be interesting to find out. There are, of course, some EV conversion packages now that you can buy that would reduce the footprint of trying to take a Tesla Model S or any of these EV drivetrains as is and jam them into a car like this as a conversion.
Now, I realize that the Testarossa is first, what a beautiful car. I mourn this a little bit because you don't have many cars out in the marketplace that have that true V12 growl that an engine can have. They just, you don't have it. And so converting it to an EV may give this car new life. But at the same time, the nostalgic in me says, "Oh my gosh, we've just ruined another beautiful vehicle that that could last for years in its existing form." I don't think he ruined it, by the way. I think he probably did a really, really cool thing there. I'm wondering if you were to put your electric motor. Yeah, I mean, you could probably get a 350 or 400 horsepower electric motor and put that up in the front as a transaxle as opposed to in the rear, because it looks like he's dropped out the whole rear. It looks like this is a rear engine car. And then put your battery, stack up your battery pack in the rear there. You might end up getting some really, really remarkable 0 to 60 speeds as well as pretty decent range.
The tough part about this is how many donor cars are you going to be able to get, or how many customers that want this very particular conversion done?
Hmm.
Because these are limited production cars. And the difficulty now for a shop doing this type of work is, sure, you're going to develop a blueprint or a boilerplate for how to make a conversion like this happen. But with a limited customer base, it's again, it's tough to get the return on investment. High volume production,
Right.
completely different story. There's another image there, Jesse. If you could pop that up, this is the Teslarossa -2. And this one is would be a surprise for anyone that goes to a supercharger, because what you would be able to see is a Ferrari supercharging, or at least in this case, I don't know if that's EV America or a Blink Station or what it is, but getting an electric charge.
That looks like very similar to an Electrify America station.
Really, and it looks like there's even a gas pump handle there. So I guess if you made a hybrid, you could get both.
Yeah.
Electric charge and your
Actually,
gas.
that other handle, that blue handle, is a Chatamo handle.
Oh, it is.
And
Okay.
so I'm familiar with that a little bit. And that looks like a big gas handle because the Chatamo is about so big. It's about 4 inches, 5 inches in circumference.
Huge.
And you have to have that great big hefty metal handle that looks like a regular standard gas.
Right. Well, we thought you'd enjoy that. Yeah, these are definitely classic cars, beautifully shaped, and eventually, hopefully, we will get EVs of this caliber on the roads that really speak to design excellence. Pininfarina, by the way, for decades made some of the most beautiful cars in the world.
Yeah.
Highlander from YouTube. Hey, welcome. Hi, gang.
Welcome
Still
back.
finding contacts as you requested at library doing research. And his favorite phrase, which has become ours, kindness is always free. Yes. YouTube, Roger Starkey. There's another regular. Welcome. Any car that's really successful has to be a world car. So anyone not building for the countries which are committed to EVs will have a reduced market. It's tricky to make a profit.
That's a great comment, Roger, and goes back to the all the European countries that have announced those EV only standards. Brian Silver on YouTube says Tesla mobile charger max is 48 amps. That sounds about right. Yeah, you can, and that 48 amp for that, if I remember correctly, that is the net amperage, which means you can put it up onto a 60 amp circuit, and U.S. electrical code is the maximum draws 80% of your circuit maximum.
I see. Okay. So it's a 60 amp wiring, breakers, and feed.
Yes. Richard Flenke on YouTube is next as well. He says, my prediction for the next big government mandate will be bi-directional charging requirements like California SB233. Have you heard Elon mention anything about bi-directional charging requirements in this bill?
I'm still surprised that Tesla has not jumped on the bandwagon and moved their cars to vehicle to grid or even vehicle to home. Ford's done it.
Mm-hmm.
And great reviews, by the way, including that customer that used his F-150 Lightning during Hurricane Ian when the power went out in his neighborhood for 3 days to keep his freezer, refrigerator, and the vital electronic components alive.
Yeah, and it's, in fact, all of the major truck manufacturers that I know of have some sort of vehicle-to-grid type of technology. Ford does it with the Lightning. Chevrolet is going to do it with the Silverado. Ram is going to do it with the Dodge Ram, is going to do it with the Revolution. Tesla does do this with the Powerwall. They just don't do it natively in their car.
Mm-hmm. Right. YouTube, Roger Starkey says Tesla will have bidirectional charging while maintaining that it's not really needed. The car is only a home battery when it's at the house, so the car is tied to the house. All right. I guess that would be Tesla's position, or at least what he's heard.
That makes sense. I think the marketplace will eventually demand it only because it is, to a certain extent, kind of gimmicky.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost very much, I don't think, for an auto manufacturer to create an automobile that can put power out to an outlet. Right now, they're putting it out to the electric motor. All they have to have is a bi-directional feed to that same outlet they're using for input charging. They're not going to lose money on putting the charging infrastructure that allows that vehicle to go to the home into the house. They're going to charge for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford charges for that, except on their Platinum line, which I think they've built the profit into the vehicle at that point. They're in their highest line. You can have Ford come and put the infrastructure into your house so your vehicle can charge your house. Otherwise, you're going to pay for it. So that's not a loss leader, and that means it becomes a selling tool. It becomes almost like a gimmick, although it is very useful for those people that would want it.
Well, and especially with a pickup truck, which is most likely going to have a lot of construction application, where it would be nice to have power at the construction site. We just bought a generator, by the way, for that very reason, because our exotic car storage facility, which is under construction now, won't have a service entrance. It won't have the electrical connection for another 2 to 3 months or so. And in order to work inside that building, we needed power. So we got a generator.
Yeah.
Highlander, he says, I refuse to criticize any company in its early days. Good point, Highlander. Yeah, they're finding their way. YouTube, PYGKLB, it will be interesting to see how Fisker's retracting back gate works once there is some mud on it. Oh, yeah, or an ice storm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's a good question. All you have to do though is look back at the old style Chevy Suburbans, because they had that electric window that would roll down into the gate, and you will get some idea of what it would be like to have a window that rolls down into your gate, as it were, with mud or with ice or snow or whatever else on it.
Right. Instagram, Mustafaber313 says, this country is Morocco. Welcome.
Oh, welcome back.
International audience for sure. And TikTok, Van Goatwagon, welcome. He says, where can I email picture of my car at the Tesla charger? EV@gruber.com would be a great place, and we'll post it next week then.
Pete, we were talking in our last podcast a little bit, and then even yesterday a little bit, about Tesla battery longevity. There was an article that had come out, a research article that I think somebody finally took a look at the data. The data has never existed before, and they came to some surprising conclusions. To start with, we've got this theory that frequent supercharging decreases battery life.
That's been conventional wisdom.
That's
all
the
along,
conventional wisdom. Yeah, as the theory goes, because supercharging is going to put high amperage, high voltage current into the battery, that high amperage and high current is going to generate a lot of heat in the battery. Heat kills lithium-ion batteries. Heat kills batteries overall. Therefore, since excessive heat reduces battery life and supercharging causes excessive heat, therefore supercharging must reduce battery life. That's the working theory. A research report from a company called Recurrent went out and looked at a study of 12,500 Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys in the United States to test this theory and see whether it's holding true. So what they did is they were able to get access to data for the Model 3 and for the Model Y. They did about 6,600 Model Ys and a little under 6,000 Model 3s, and they only picked the cars that were on the ends of the spectrum, meaning for the cars that use supercharging a lot, only cars that did supercharging at least 90% of the time based on the data, on the charging data that's in the car. For the cars that don't do supercharging very much, it was only cars that did supercharging 10% of the time or less.
Okay.
So it's really the ends of the spectrum. They wanted to find out what happens. Now there is a graph. Oh, Jesse, I don't know if I have it on this show's information. And
Is it Supercharger Graph Model 3?
Yes, it is.
It is in
Supercharger
there, yeah.
graph Model 3. If we can throw that graph up, that's going to show what the researchers found of battery life over charges.
There we go.
And what you notice is that the frequent fast charge degradation line is virtually identical to the rare fast charge line. That was flies in the face of convention. It is actually was a real surprise to these guys. In fact, the researchers found that there's virtually no difference in the battery life and the battery profiles between these two segments of cars. And more importantly, the initial analysis that they've performed of the data, the Recurrent team is saying that it suggests that these findings are going to hold true regardless of the model and regardless of the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why is that the research team believes that the battery management systems that have been created are robust enough to completely counteract the degradation that takes place as a result of possible excessive heat.
Interesting. So improvement in the technology. Now, are we talking about lithium iron phosphate or both lithium iron phosphate and lithium ion cells?
Both. In
Both.
fact, lithium iron phosphate and lithium ion cells. In fact, most of these cars had to be lithium ion because they looked at up to 2,000 charge cycles, which means you have to be looking at some of the older cars.
Right.
And
Okay.
lithium iron phosphate is only a technology that's in, I think, 2021 is when it was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So this is almost exclusively looking at lithium ion, which is more sensitive to heat and to degradation as a result of heat. So there are some times that they said, however, when fast charging would be more likely to cause damage. I wanted to mention these. First, if you're in extreme heat, think Phoenix in the summertime.
Yep.
And the battery has not been preconditioned. So this would be, preconditioning the battery means that the car is getting the battery temperature down to a point where it can accept charging readily. A great example to me would be I'm sitting here in the Gruber parking lot with my Tesla Model S. I decide at lunch that, you know what, my charge isn't quite as high as I'd like it to be. And all of our charging stations are full. So I'm going to drive down to the supercharger and plug in. Well, the supercharger is only about 3 miles from us.
Mm-hmm.
My car could be there in 6 minutes. That's not enough time when it's 115 degrees outside to actually get the battery preconditioned properly. The preconditioning process takes 15 to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the other end of the spectrum is also true. Battery preconditioning means warming up the battery if it's excessively cold. So you think of the upper Midwest in the middle of winter. If you go and drive around the corner and plug into a supercharger, you're actually going to be potentially harming your battery because that supercharger is going to be dumping a bunch of electricity into a battery that's too cold,
Mm-hmm.
and you get the same type of thing, potential lithium plating. When the battery is in a very low or very high state of charge, a supercharger is not as effective as well. Now, on the very high side, your battery management system kicks in and will slow down that supercharger speed. In fact, the supercharger speed between 80 and 100% might be slower than a standard 240 volt, 40 amp charger.
Mm-hmm.
They slow it down that much. However, when your battery is very low, when it's down at that below 20%, in a Model S, that's when your bar is yellow. That is an area too where your battery resistance tends to be a little bit higher, and the charging process will pick up and start charging and dump a bunch of heat into that battery. The resistance is a little higher, and you could damage your battery that way. Now, there are also, finally, we have a DC charging fact versus fiction page that I'd like you to show, Jesse. There were a few facts and myths of DC charging that the researchers brought forward, and I thought they were really, really useful for us to be able to see. The first one is that repeatedly fast charging your car from 0 to 100% is fine. That's the fiction. The fact is that virtually all electric vehicles have software that curtails the fast charge speeds above 80%. In fact, like I just mentioned, a level 2 charger, which is your 240 volt, 40 amp charger, is oftentimes both cheaper and faster if you're already starting at around an 80% charge. The second factor fiction has to do with the kilowatt hours of the battery, where it says that the kilowatt rating of a fast charger constrains how fast a vehicle can charge. And this goes to the idea that a Tesla supercharger, generation 1, 75 kilowatts, generation 2 is 150, generation 3 is 250 kilowatts. So if you take your 2013 Model S to a Gen 3 charger, you're going to charge 4 times as fast almost as if you're in a Gen 1 charger. That's not true. The car determines how much charge it can accept. And a 2013 Tesla Model S, for example, is only going to accept about 75 kilowatts of charge, even if the charging system can deliver more than that. The third fiction that's out there is that any amount of fast charging is going to cause permanent damage to the battery. The fact is that's absolutely not true. The BMS systems are well enough, are robust enough to largely counteract that. We don't have a lot of long-term studies, 15 to 20 years or above, because even the Roadster is not designed for fast charging. The Model S is the only car that's even 10 years old right now that accepts the kind of fast charging that we can look at. But there's no question that in smaller doses, fast charging is completely fine, and the research is suggesting that it might not matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
The last one is that fast charging in the cold will cause lithium plating. Now, lithium plating means that it's a chemical reaction that occurs inside your battery. The lithium salt actually goes up to, and I don't remember if it's the cathode or the anode, it goes from one end to the other as the ions move, and that the lithium ends up, a plate of lithium covers one end of your battery, effectively killing the battery. EV batteries have a lot of software and a lot of hardware that's designed to prevent this from happening. When you're in a really cold environment, for example, and you plug your car into a supercharger, you may find that your car, until it gets up to 25 or 30% charge, actually charges pretty slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for it is that a lot of that electricity is going into heating the battery, not charging the battery.
Mm-hmm.
And so the car takes care of that. And the reason why is because of the lithium plating problem at cold temperature. So a lot of cool stuff there. And when I happened to come across that research article, I thought, wow, this flies in the face of everything that we've even recommended.
It does, yes.
And yet the research is out there. So this research is in the process of being peer reviewed. It has not been peer reviewed as of yet, but it's a powerful argument against the conventional wisdom. Look forward to seeing what happens. And it just goes to show we really don't know that we know that we know.
Yeah. Mark, thank you for that in-depth research. And you're right, we're going to have to change our documentation because we've been going with conventional wisdom for years, advising customers how to charge their batteries and what to stay away from superchargers. And if you're buying a car, make sure that it's not a gig worker that has been doing DoorDash and supercharging constantly, or a taxi cab. And
yeah, and it might be that those cars are actually much better off than you would have thought originally.
Yeah. Be interesting to see what the peer reviews have to say after this. And this is probably one of those segments that Ray Johnson will pick up with the Facebook site, the BMS 029 site, that talks about the battery failures in the Model S.
He definitely may. I encourage you guys comment as well. Interested to hear what your guys' take is.
Got some questions coming in. Highlander's back with us, and he says, and the owner where I used to work, the fork truck situation, made fun of me for being pro-Tesla. Really? That's your biggest customer?
Yes.
Richard Flenke says, doesn't Tesla AC run through the battery pack? Is it operational during fast charging? Yeah, there's a heat exchanger in the Teslas that actually does kick in the AC when it requires additional cooling. It doesn't work very well in the Roadster, however. Well, I guess it works well, but it takes the cabin, cooling and shuts it down in favor of the battery.
Yeah, batteries are much more important than humans when it comes to these cars.
They are. It looks like Roger Starkey has some information on that Teslarossa. He says the electric classic car's Teslarossa does use a Model S unit, flipped on its back, modified oil feed at the front, full retrofit is possible, no chassis mods are made. Well, that is amazing. My
That's
hats off
incredible.
to these guys. Yeah.
Wow.
Looks like some true engineers got involved in this one and did the fabrication correctly and hit some milestones. YouTube, PYGKLB. Tesla thermal management for battery and cabin both work during fast charging, as I can attest.
Yes. I can attest to that as well, being in the hot area. Like Pete likes to tease me. I leave that air on.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to cool off Phoenix is my take on
That's
it.
right.
YouTube, Roger Starkey. The Tesla Roadster has limited 0 to 60 of 3.8 seconds compared to the 7.2 seconds for the original V12. And we didn't talk about that. Yeah, my suspicion was that as soon as this Testarossa was converted, that the performance on that car improved. And I didn't realize it was that bad. It's 7.2 seconds for the original V12. Usually the V12s have a bit more horsepower than that.
Yeah. And that just reminds me, and we were talking about this a couple days ago, the 0 to 60 speeds that we have. You don't think about it much when you say an electric car has a 4-second 0 to 60 speed, or the Ford Lightning has a 4.7-second 0 to 60 speed.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, that's kind of slow.
Right.
No, it's not.
Comparatively speaking, yes.
We're talking a Ferrari with a V12 that had a 7.2 second.
Yeah. And the 0 to 60s on the contemporary cars during the release of the Testarossa. See, I knew I was going to have a tongue twister there. Those two are too close together. Would have been, beyond 10 seconds, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's if somebody were to ever ask me how fast my 1996 Chevrolet K1500 pickup truck gets 0 to 60, my answer would be yes.
Exactly, yeah.
It gets there.
YouTube, Highlander. My cousins in Aussie tell me EV conversions are really growing because EVs are so hard to get. Because Paul Gibson in Down Under tells me so. Got a cousin there, right?
Then Facebook, Manish Sharma. What's the max temperature after which the car won't charge?
Oh, I do not know that.
I'm not sure of that. I believe on the Roadster, it's somewhere around 140 degrees. I believe on the Model S, this is my anecdotal experience. I know on a Model S, I drove to Quartzsite back from California at one point, and when my wife and I stopped in Quartzsite, it was a nice and toasty 118 degrees down there in the Colorado River Basin, one of the hottest spots of the United States. And our car would not fast charge.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we plugged it into a supercharger, it was charging at about 15 miles an hour equivalent.
Yeah.
So we stayed for about an hour and a half and picked up about 25 miles so that we could get enough mileage in the car to get to the next charger.
Right.
Which we did no problem. And then the next charger, we picked up 150 miles in about 15 minutes.
Yeah. Instagram, Novlim10. What we have here is 2 sunglasses with a man, with men. It's the first sunglass question today.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, there was a comment on one of our videos, and someone said something like, why is he wearing sunglasses? He's not a rock star. Well, I'm going to suggest to you that maybe we are rock stars. And the other part of that is, people don't walk up to rock stars and say, "Why are you wearing sunglasses?" or Neo on The Matrix,
That's
or the
right.
Blues Brothers. But we get a lot of that. So maybe we're not quite rock stars yet in the YouTube world.
I don't know. That's maybe not. Maybe we are.
Now, wait a minute. We have Richard here who is about to give us a sunglass lesson. Go for
That's
it,
right.
Richard.
I'm ready this time.
You are ready.
I've got all of the pairs of sunglasses, but no sunglass case holder. Where could I ever find one? Well, you can get this one on GruberMotorCompany.com. We are selling them with custom engraving. It is genuine leather.
GruberMotors.com.
GruberMotors.com, excuse me. I don't even know our own website, Gruber Motors. And if you've got one pair, you can get one, that's totally fine. But if you've got two pairs, you can also get two. They are 10% off if you use code Richard.
Thank you,
If you
Richard.
use code Aaron as well. Throw
No,
that
he's
in for
not-
him. He's busy.
Yeah, no, he's not piping up anymore. Oh, he's giving us a thumbs up. Yeah, you can use this too. And it looks like we've got a YouTube comment from Stores Keeper RVL. He says, "Hello from Austria. Welcome."
Welcome and good afternoon to you.
Yes. What do you think? 11:30?
Yeah, looks like it's
There's
time
Jesse.
to wrap up.
Yep. And George is not here to prompt Jesse to do the roll-up gesture. It looks like we will be wrapping today. The next EV podcast is going to be Tuesday next week and then Thursday. And Wednesday, of course, is the Tesla Roadster podcast. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have our Gruber Power Services podcast, which is where we talk about critical power equipment, uninterruptible power systems, and oftentimes the similarities between this technology and our critical power world.
We have just a couple of more comments and question. First, Roger Starkey. Is the future so bright that you had to wear shades?
Totally.
I would say
Absolutely.
totally,
Yeah.
yes. And then Instagram, Rojo Sub. I like this channel. Keep going. You made an awesome job.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And again, we are appreciating all of the international people that were showing up and continue to do so.
Van Goat says wrap it up on TikTok as well.
Oh, he does. Okay, Van Goat Wagon. Yep. And then we have the Sunday podcast. We didn't mention that. And that one's actually gaining some momentum as well. This is where Jesse and I come in on a Sunday morning rather than go to church. And we address some of the new AI issues that had been brewing for the previous week. And there's always something interesting going on. Last Sunday, we actually discovered that AI is now able to smell down to the molecular level, and that human beings have 400 olfactory receptors in their body, and that AI is going to do a much better job of being
Tell
able
them to go
smell.
watch it. They can watch it.
All right. You can go watch it. It's on our YouTube
We
channel.
need those views.
All right. And hit the like button and subscribe. And did
By
I
all
say it all
means.
correctly? Yep.
Something like that.
Next, the next podcast here, for if you guys want to see what else we do here at Gruber, watch tomorrow, same time, 10 o'clock. You'll get to see Claude and Elvis on the Gruber Power Services Power Hour. We've got that on Sunday. Otherwise, we will see you on Tuesday.
Thank you for joining us.